Well, that is a near perfect session for India. We would have called it the perfect session for India had Rohit Sharma just held on to temptation, avoided temptation, and seen his side through to lunch without a wicket lost. As it turns out, it's a story that we've been told a few times. Does hard work in Test cricket and then to get out. We'll look back at that with VVS Laxman and Stephen Harmison on ESPN Cricket for Match Day. It is lunch on day two. Let me go to you, Lakshman. We were all set to praise India's openers, and then that happened. What is your reaction just as Rohit Sharma has been dismissed?
No, I think he will be definitely disappointed, because he's done
Hmm.
all the hard work. And when you do so much of hard work, when you show so much of discipline, the time to capitalize would have been a post-lunch session. The wicket is flat, the bowlers are already tired, and that's when probably Rohit Sharma would have capitalized and probably changed his gait. But I just feel that the run-out chance just before
Hmm.
the delivery he got out probably must have distracted Rohit Sharma. Just when you're focusing so intensely, you will lose the concentration, and that's probably the reason why he went on to play that shot, even though he knew that it was the last over before lunch.
Is that, before I come to you, Steve, is that a pattern that you're observing with Rohit Lakshman about concentration being lost? So good when conditions are so challenging. Suddenly, just when you feel like it's getting better to bat, he ends up playing a shot like this, which eventually sees his downfall. We've seen this a few times in the past as well, haven't we?
Yeah, it happened in Brisbane,
Hmm.
in the second innings in Brisbane, when he was just looking to capitalize on the wonderful foundation he and Shubman gave, when they were chasing that big target. We saw that in both the innings of World Test Championship final. He's done all the hard work, especially when the conditions were suitable for the New Zealand bowlers. And then he plays a ball which is wide outside the off stump. And in the second innings, he got out, leaving the ball which he was supposed to play. Yeah, probably that it can be termed as a pattern. But having said that, I think he will be really pleased with the way he has applied himself. He wants to prove himself that he is a more than capable opening batsman in overseas conditions. And I think he will definitely convert this start into big score in the coming innings.
Hmm. England would take that, wouldn't they, Steve?
Yeah, they'll take it. They'll be very, very pleased to get Rohit Sharma just before lunch. It sometimes happens, and VVS might elaborate on it a bit more. Batsmen get to a point in a break where you think, I've done the hard job, and the concentration leading into a break is sometimes the best time to get a good batsman out. Or, from a bowling point of view, really the over before lunch, 2 overs before lunch, or tea or drinks. You're thinking, right? Has he switched off? Has he got his sort of gloves off? Is he thinking as though he's ready for his cup of tea and his little break, getting ready to come back out again? I think sometimes you do get batsmen that have lapses of concentration, do just sort of they do become vulnerable round about the break time. I thought England bowled okay. I thought it was a very, very good session of Test match cricket. I think they
Hmm.
put the ball in a decent length. Lines, you could argue, a touch wider, but when your margin for error, when you've only got 183 on the board, is so small. You don't want to go chasing it because if you do bowl too straight, you get whipped, you get hit down the ground. Rowe hit a couple of good ones down the ground, and all of a sudden you're chasing the tail. I thought England stuck to their task well and stuck in there. They just weren't rewarded with some of the decent balls of bowl. I think there was
Hmm.
33 played misses in that first session, and that tells you that England put the ball in a decent area. They just didn't have much luck, and Indian batsmen didn't nick it.
All right. I want to get into a more detailed conversation about what line these bowling attacks have chosen to go for in this test. We've seen a slight contrast, at least in the evidence of the first session that England have bowled and a bit yesterday, as well as the first innings that India have. We'll come to that in a bit. But just back to the Rohit Sharma point about the pull shot in particular, VVS, is that just such an instinctive shot for him that it's hard to take away from his natural game or his natural instinct, or is there a way to almost coach him out of it? You'd think you'd want Rohit Sharma to be told it's the last over before lunch. Avoid that. Just see it out. You've done all the hard work, but it seems like he can't help himself when he gets one of those.
Yeah, and also that's a very productive shot for Rohit Sharma. In all the formats we've seen that he's been one of the best puller in world cricket. Irrespective of how quick the wicket is, he gets into position early and plays the pull shot. Not a conventional position to play the pull shot. He's always underneath the ball. That's why majority of his pull shot actually end up going in the air. But 9 out of 10 times, you would expect Rohit Sharma to easily clear the boundary. I just feel again, that the concentration lapse would have happened because of that run out chance which went begging. And since the morning session started, at least there were 2 or 3 misunderstandings between Rohit Sharma and KL Rahul. So maybe lack of focus has has probably led him to play that shot. But when you can pull like the way Rohit Sharma does, I think you have to back your natural instincts. Because very evident was he had a game plan. Until and unless the ball is over pitch, he was not going to play anything through the line on the rise. And whenever the ball was shot, he was ready to play on the back foot, either square of the wicket on the offside or on the onside. And he knew that this is his strength and that is ability to clear the boundaries. But unfortunately, he just held on to the fielder out there in the deep.
Yeah, it does look like a concentration thing. Yes, Steve, please. I'll come back to VVS. Yes, Steve.
I think with Rohit as a bowler, I think England bowled well at Rohit and to a point. They're trying to drag him over and beyond off stump. Can they get him to over off stump? Because they're trying to get him LBW in English conditions, looking to just move the ball away, swing the ball away, get Rohit from probably batting around about middle stump and then getting his weight transfer to go across to off stump and keep going there. England didn't bowl many short balls in that session.
Yes.
Now, maybe some overs worth, that's it. And try to move him across because they're trying to get the one to nip back. But the thing that Rohit Sharma does, and he does, like VVS says, he plays the full shot very well, plays the back foot cut shot very well, he plays the square cut very well. He stands up quite tall, and I think Ollie Robinson's what he's done there is he's moved him onto off stump. And because England's bowlers aren't as the express pace like Jasprit Bumrah or a little bit, Mohammad Shami's a little bit quicker than the England bowlers, Rohit's had time to see the ball coming, angling back in towards him, and he's probably his natural instinct is because he's standing on outside off stump. He's lost his bearings a little bit, and he's just helped it on around the corner. So actually, it was quite a good bit of bowling from England.
So was there a case for more short balls then? There wasn't a lot of it in that morning session, Steve.
There wasn't a lot of short balls, but when I look at the England bowling attack, I would imagine if England bowling attack bowling in between sort of 78 and 83 mile an hour. If they bowl a lot of short balls in that session, I would imagine Rohit and KL Rahul might have climbed in a little bit more than they actually did. I actually think England, the bowler didn't bowl a short ball because they haven't got bowlers that actually are renowned for bowling short ball. I thought Stuart Broad might have had a little bit of a go for a 5 or 6 over burst because of because Stuart's tall, he might have got the ball, the bounce of it. But Jimmy's not a short ball bowler, Robinson's not a short ball bowler. And Sam Curran's about the same height as the stump, so he's not going to get many bounces above the stump, the eye line. So it's just not in England's makeup for sure, I don't think.
All right.
Just on that, just to add to what Steve has mentioned, I was just surprised that Stuart Broad didn't open along with Jimmy Anderson this morning. Because you know that if you have to put pressure on the Indian batting lineup, you have to make the first 5-6 overs count. Because you knew that both the openers looked very good last evening. Jimmy Anderson, I just felt that he was bowling a lot of deliveries off stump, outside the off stump, instead of trying to hit the top of off stump. And while Robinson bowled well, I would have backed Stuart Broad. So 2 premier experienced bowlers to go flat out in the morning spell in the first 1 hour. And then you can always fall back on Sam Curran and Robinson, and then you can get back your experienced bowlers just before lunch. So I just felt that the toughest time for any batsman would be at the start of the day, and they didn't, I think, capitalize on that period.
All right, just to round off the Rohit discussion, we'll come to KL Rahul next. It seems like a concentration thing. That's the universal assessment VVS on him, and it's your assessment too. Is there something that you did to reset concentration at times? You know that Rohit Sharma is focusing so hard, trying to play contrary to what we've seen him play in the shorter formats. And when that concentration is about to drop, is there something you can do as a batsman to almost reset?
Well, you can definitely think about executing your game plan, because as a batsman, it's what does concentration mean? It's all about trusting your instincts and backing your game plan. And I think I wouldn't really fault Rohit Sharma in playing that shot because that is his natural shot. That is his scoring shot. So if you're not playing your scoring shot or the shot which produces a lot of runs, then how are you going to get runs? But the only probably disappointing factor in that dismissal, it was in the last over before lunch. That would be the only disappointing thing about playing that shot. But I just feel that Rohit Sharma should not get into a mental space where he doesn't realize how to change gears. Because sometimes when you're an over-aggressive batsman or a natural stroke player, you suddenly cannot convert yourself into a defensive batsman. But what we have seen in this innings and also in World Test Championship innings is at the start of the innings, Rohit Sharma wants to be subdued, wants to know where his off stump is, trusting his defensive ability, which is not natural to him. Because he's a natural stroke player, he's always batted in the middle order. And he knows that if you have to be successful in English conditions, you have to respect the good deliveries at the start of your innings. Now, how he ends that gate is very, very critical for Rohit Sharma. And sometimes you can falter. I've seen in Murli Vijay's batting. He was a natural stroke player when he started his international career. But because India played a lot of overseas test matches and test series between 2014 to 2016-17, suddenly from a natural stroke player, he became a defensive opener. Who's going to occupy the crease for long periods of time and then convert those starts into big 100. I just hope Rohit Sharma knows how to shape games and how to capitalize on the loose deliveries whenever it's on offer.
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating observation. It perhaps is more for batters that have all the shots. Sometimes if you don't have all the shots, it's easier to...
That's why it's very tough the way Rohit Sharma and KL Rahul played, because they're out and out stroke players. You see them bat in white ball cricket. I mean, they have got all the shots in their repertoire, but to control their instincts and to show so much of discipline probably is tougher for a natural stroke player like both KL Rahul and Rohit Sharma. They've done fantastically well in this session. That's why it's all the more disappointing for Rohit Sharma to have done all the hard work and get out when the time was there to capitalize and convert that start into a big score.
All right, let's talk a bit about KL Rahul now. Under a bit of pressure, and that seems to have been a mighty important innings personally for him. Steve, let me come to you first up. You followed a bit of KL Rahul as well. It was a 50-50 call, you'd think. Those that support KL Rahul want to see him back, and those that have seen him fail in Test cricket, and you think, okay, should India look beyond him? What have you made of his innings?
Well, I think he left off in a warm-up game. I think he got a few runs in the in-house game of cricket between the two Indian sides. He's got used to English conditions. Class is permanent, and it doesn't matter whether you feel as though you're a white ball player or you're a red ball player. You don't pigeonhole good players, and good players can play and adapt to any situation. We've talked about at length about Rohit Sharma. But KL Rahul is very similar in the way that he looks to attack the ball. And I always believe in England, if you look to attack the ball in England, you're in a better position to defend it, or you get in better positions to defend it, to make your decision quicker, to understand what's happening. When you come to England, if you're tentative, if you're negative, if you feel as though that you've got to get in behind it and defend it, then you get unstuck because you become apprehensive of your foot movement, of your body position, of your head going forward. If your bodies end up leaning back, your feet are going towards the ball, and your hands play out in front of you. KL Rahul is a naturally aggressive batsman, and I think his movements have been very, very good. When the ball's been on there to hit, he's hit it, and he's looked as though I wouldn't say road his look. He's earned the look he's getting with some of the playing and missing he's had with Broad, Anderson, Robinson, and Curran, because they've bowled good lengths at the both Indian batsmen. He's earned that because he's respected, what's been going on around him. He hasn't chased it outside of stumps. He's let the ball go nicely. I think he's batted really, really well, and he deserves to be in the hutch at lunch to give him the chance to come out when it, hopefully for an Indian point of view, it gets a little bit easier and the bowlers get a bit more tired. Then the natural progression of stroke play will come out.
Maybe yes, you backed him. You wanted to see him open once. Even if Mayank Agarwal was fit, I think you had said you would have wanted to play KL Rahul. What's been most impressive about this innings for you so far?
I think it's balance at the crease and just the transfer of weight, always looking to play the full ball. And two shots actually stand out. The cover drive, it's a long stride forward, waiting for the ball come close to him and then playing the cover drive, not playing that lavish cover drive where he's finishing the shot, but he's just concentrating on not hitting the ball hard, but timing the ball. And then even when the ball is little short and outside the off stump, he's not looking to play the back foot punch, which can induce that outside edge, but he's looking to play with an angle bat, more cut short towards point region. And that shows that he also realizes what are the areas where he can get out, and he's covering those weaknesses. And also whenever the ball is nipping back in, he's playing with the full face of the bat. And dead defense is something which he's focusing on. So overall, I think he's really applied himself well. But whenever the opportunity arises, he looked in sublime form, and I just hope that, from his career's point of view, this innings can be a breakthrough innings for him.
Test innings in England was in excess of 100. Let's see if we can manage something similar in this one. That would be some story for KL Rahul, but let's not jinx it. Let's see how he goes in the second session. And wickets did fall considerably more towards the end of day one. So we'll take this session by session. Good session for India. But while we look back at what we've seen in this game so far, we've got a great conversation lined up for VVS and Steve. And it's to do with the plan of attack or the line of attack that India's bowlers chose yesterday. And maybe we can even make a comparison with what we've seen of England today. What we have seen, we discussed it yesterday with Steve Harmison and VVS Laxman too, was India's fast bowlers wanting to attack the stumps. We've got some data and we've dug it out on that being just a pattern that India's bowlers have employed when they've been in the Sena countries, South Africa, England, New Zealand, Australia. Now, yesterday, gentlemen, 7 out of the 10 wickets India took in that innings were essentially balls aimed at the stumps. And if we look at the numbers overall, we're seeing a percentage in excess of 31 that India bowl within the stumps in our country since 2018. And the wickets taken are nearly 50%. That's a pretty high number when the general perception is that in England, you aim to bowl outside the off stump in the channel and try to nick them. So the first thing I want to ask both of you, Steve, maybe you first up. What does it tell you that India's bowlers have come with this line of attack and it seemed to be successful in the first innings?
Harrison comes with the batting units. That's as simple as that. India's batting unit is far superior for me in talent than the England batting unit. They've got more confidence than the England batting unit. The way they've developed their careers and experience is more comfortable than the England batting unit, and that's India. If I was a bowler, I'd be bowling straight to England because I don't believe England's if I was in charge of a team going against England, I look at England's top 7 and I'll be going, well, I want them to hit as many balls as they can with their bat. But the simple fact is, I do not believe their techniques are up to standard for Test match status, especially if I've got a bowling attack of Shami, Bumrah, Siraj, and Thakur. So I think it went very, very quickly. And Virat Kohli went very, very quickly, probably inside the first hour and 20 minutes, from just outside of stump where you would want to bowl in England, and create a channel out there. I don't believe these guys' techniques is good enough to play national cricket. And they moved just outside off stump to Joe Root. They bowled straight to everybody else. I think that was a great plan, a master stroke from Kohli. His field positions were very, very good, and his bowlers are a little bit quicker than England. A little bit quicker than England bowlers. So you can go that little bit fuller because you can catch people on the crease a little bit more. England haven't got that luxury. They're about 4 or 5 mile an hour, a little bit slower. And when they go from outside off stump to straighter against the likes of, KL Rahul, who is a shot maker, Rohit Sharma, who's a shot maker, that little bit less pace can give you the chance to hit the ball comfortably down the ground, or use the risk that a lot of Indian players have got through mid wicket. So I think that's the difference between the two sides. You can look at the bowlers, but I think you have to look at the batsmen as well and who the bowlers are bowling to.
That's very interesting. So VVS, is it as simple as bowling straight or attacking the stumps is always smarter against what you perceive to be a weaker batting lineup?
I think just the stats which you read out, it's about last 2 years in Sena countries.
Yes.
Now, India has played in South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, the last 3 years. I'm not talking about even 2018 England series.
Yes.
Now, naturally, we discussed this yesterday. The Indian fast bowler, compared to the English fast bowlers, are more hit the deck bowlers. Which means that the more they bowl on good length or just fuller length, all the hit the deck bowlers, like someone like Steve Harmison or say Hazel, would always look to hit the top of off stump, whereas swing bowlers look to take the ball away from the right-handers. And except in New Zealand, rest of the other places didn't assist too much of swing bowling, but there was definitely a lot of lateral movement on offer for the fast bowlers. And whenever there's lateral movement, you always look to attack the stumps. Now, coming to Steve's point about the English batsmen, I always feel that if the batsman's technique is compromised, if the head is falling, the easiest dismissal is to create that bat and pad gap so that you can get them bowled, or whenever they're playing the ball on the leg side, like the way we saw Sibley get out yesterday, they
Yes.
offer a chance on the onside, either at short mid-wicket catching area or also at short leg. And that's why probably the plan of attack yesterday for Shami, Bumrah, Siraj, and Shardul Thakur, most of the first three names I mentioned, was to look to bowl the ball straight and attack the stumps. And there was not too much of swing offered in that post-lunch session. So I believe it's dictated by the batsman you're bowling to and also the conditions you're bowling on.
When we compare types of fast bowlers, though, Steve, the fact that India's bowlers are more accustomed to bowling in line with the stumps, it's a plan of attack that's regularly assorted to in the subcontinent. Does that in any way make them more potent when they're trying the same thing overseas?
Yeah, but I think when you're looking to set batsmen up, you've got a set plan for each batsman. There's no way in the world I'd have bowled, off stump against a Sachin or a VVS or players of that stature that can hit the ball down from outside off stump through mid wicket. But there are players you'd look at and you think, well, if I bowl straight here, he falls over. He creates a different, a different dismissal altogether. I think in England, the bowlers that India have, you talk about hitting the deck. They have got English type bowlers. Bumrah is an English type bowler that looks to hit the pitch hard and get something out of the surface. And, in England, your margin for error is a little bit larger from a seam bowler point of view because you can hit that sort of good length, short of a good length, or just above, just beyond a good length, and you can get away with it. Over in the subcontinent, it's a completely different game. So I think because they've learned a lot of lines and lengths being in their own country, because predominantly bowl with a white ball, and you have to be straighter and tighter on off stump, they're actually not changing their game plan too much from a white ball to a red ball. They're just
Sure.
basically saying, "I'm going to put the ball in and around off stump." I'm going to let the surface do the work and the conditions above do the work, and that's what you have to do in England. They're a little bit quicker, like I said before. They're a little bit quicker than the England bowlers. England bowlers haven't got that mark. They've got a little bit less margin for error, and that's why you see the likes of Broad and Anderson bowl a little bit wider than off stump because at their pace they go straighter. It's just it's food and drink for the subcontinent batsmen who hit the ball nicely down the ground and well through mid wicket.
I wonder where the two of you stand on this in terms of players who played in what was, maybe this is a popular or unpopular opinion, but perhaps a more competitive era of Test cricket, where you had perhaps more formidable batting lineups around the world than you do today. But is that a way possibly for fast bowlers to just, are we going to see that as a pattern in Test cricket for a few years now, VVS? If you look around the world and you think of how many teams possess strong batting lineups, a number of batters that are technically sound in different conditions. Do you think this is the way that more and more bowlers will resort to? I have the numbers from the World Test Championship. India got a lot less wickets bowling straight there against New Zealand. You think New Zealand's one of the better batting lineups now in the world. But barring that, looking at England now, looking at other teams, do you think this is the way that Test cricket's going to be now?
Yeah, absolutely. And no disrespect to the current
Yeah.
generation of batsmen, but I think I definitely feel that the defensive technique is compromised. And whenever you're playing test matches, what we have seen is majority of the test matches you're getting whistles, which means that you're playing on pitches which are conducive to fast bowling, or in subcontinent which are conducive to spin bowling and also reverse swing bowling. So I think that's when the defensive technique and the temperament of playing those long innings, making sure that you get past the tough, challenging spells from fast bowlers. I think that is definitely missing in modern generation of batsmen. And one of the reasons for that is too much emphasis on power play, too much emphasis on being a good white ball batsman. And I think it's always a give and take. In life, if you want to achieve something, sometimes you get compromised in other aspects. And here I think a lot of young generation of test batsmen are compromised as far as the defensive technique is concerned and how to see through a challenging spell from a quality bowler.
Steve, you spend so much of your time bowling to Sachin, Dravid, Ponting, Hayden, and Callis. You think you'd have played in this era that 2-6 could have gone to 3-6, maybe 4-6?
Yeah, I think I must admit I made a joke yesterday about England's two openers and the way they move about a bit, and I think 4 stone heavier than what I was at my playing days and 42-year old. I reckon if I could bowl enough balls off stump, I'd get them both out now, even now. So Yeah, and it's tongue in cheek, and I don't like having a go like that.
Sure.
I just look at people's techniques. And VVS has just mentioned there and talk about batsmen and powers, and there has been I would say a difference across this era to the generation before on results per test series. There's a lot of results now. There's a lot of test matches going 4 days and not 5 days. But I've just watched a session now with Broad and Anderson bowl. Okay, decent lines, decent lengths, good areas. England have bowled not bad. And two, what you would say are power player players, two players who dominate the IPL, smash white balls all over the shop, stand in English conditions, nicely balanced, pick their bat up straight, defend the ball when they have to, overpitch ball to hit the ball for four, and respect the surface and the bowlers have just played on. The difference, I think, in the modern generation of the game is the techniques that some people have got can't play multi-formats, and there are some people who can play multi-formats, and I think India have just shown that. Rohit Sharma and K. Rahul, a simple technique of picking the bat up straight and staying still with your head still and trying to hit the ball and comfortably leaving the ball. I think that's the difference between the two sides, because England's techniques look all at sea, where two power player batsmen perceived to be white ball players have just one's faced 107 balls, one's faced 124 balls in the first part of an innings, and looked very, very comfortable.
All right, that was a fascinating conversation. Many thanks, VVS Laxman and Stephen Harmison. Quick final comments as we head into the second session. You think an important innings personally for Cheteshwar Pujara, VVS coming up like there was for KL Rahul, and perhaps the stage is set nicely for Pujara. Starts made, not a big score, no real pressure. What are you expecting from Pujara?
Well, I'm just expecting him to go out and play his game. I just hope that he doesn't think about what's happening outside the team environment, what people are talking about his game. And knowing Pujara, he won't get distracted. He will be focusing on the task ahead of him, and just go out and also seize the opportunity of scoring whenever it arises. Because you don't want to just see him, blocking all the deliveries. And I'm sure that the more strike rotation will happen, it will also benefit his partner KL Rahul, because he's in good rhythm. You don't want to also break the rhythm of his partner. So overall, I'm expecting Pujara to score big in this test match, and that's what probably all the Indian fans and the team management and his teammates want from Pujara, because he's a leader in the group. He's played some important knocks in trying conditions and in trying circumstances for his team. He's going through a lean patch. You want an established batsman to get back his confidence, and the only way you can get back your confidence is by scoring runs and performing and playing to your potential.
Just following up from the chat we had yesterday, Steve, about when this ball starts behaving or misbehaving a little more, depending on whether you're a bowler or a batsman. You think these next 20 overs or so are the best time to bat with the ball, 37 overs old now?
You'd think so. From a batting point of view, you'd think get over the initial burst of 10, 12 balls when you get in and get going and get used to being out in the middle again. I think that will be a good time to bat. But Broad and Anderson, you talk about leaders. VVS talks about leaders. I think Broad and Anderson will be looking at yesterday and saying, you know what, Mohammed Shami bowled where he bowled 7 overs for 9, played missed so many times. He missed I didn't get much luck. And they'll be saying, right, if we put the ball in the right area, don't get carried away like Shami did yesterday. He picked up a couple of wickets, but he started the ball rolling for England's demise. I think Broad and Anderson will be saying to that little bowling group, yesterday they didn't have much luck in the first session. They got the rewards in the second session, and we've got to do that, because if we don't, by tea time, we could be out of this test match.
Yep, seems advantage India quite significantly at lunch on day 2. They're just 86 behind with 9 wickets. But funnier things have happened. Stuart Broad's playing at his home ground. He can run through sides. Let's pick up the conversation at tea time with VVS Laxman and Stephen Harmison. Thank you, gentlemen. Do join us then on ESPN to confirm match day. It looks like India's day to be, and we'll pick up the chat with these fine gents at tea. So join us then.